2 months into the Myanmar military coup at the end of March, thousands of ethnic Karen citizens started fleeing across this Salween River into Thailand because of violent attacks between the Myanmar military and the ethnic armed groups. Many of them continue to live along the riverbank on the Myanmar side for fear of more attacks to happen, and they will be prepared to cross once again if necessary. Thailand is bracing itself for a potential humanitarian crisis at its doorstep. At a local civil society organization office in Chiang Mai, Daso helps to pack relief supplies for those fleeing the latest violence in neighbouring Myanmar. She knows what it feels like to be in desperate need of help and refuge. 25 years ago, she fled from Myanmar's Karen state to Thailand because of attacks by the military.
No house, no place, no roof, no shirt, no food. So it's very feel upset. Every time that our friend is sent the video for us, we cry. So it's a very difficult life.
This video from a humanitarian group shows ethnic Karen villagers taking shelter in the jungle in Myanmar. Since the end of March, at least 20,000 people have been forced to flee their homes after airstrikes by the military targeting territories controlled by ethnic armed groups. Some 10 of 20 major ethnic armed groups and the Myanmar military have been engaged in the world's longest civil war. Help organizations say the situation has become worse since the military coup on February 1st.
Barring a ceasefire or some level of agreement between the ethnic states and the central government and the military, we expect this to continue, and this humanitarian crisis will expand and grow.
In late March, some 2,000 Karen villagers living near the border fled across the Salween River into Thailand, but were pushed back by Thai soldiers, according to activist groups. The Thai government has denied forcing the villagers back. It has also said it's willing to provide medical treatment if necessary. Thailand's Prime Minister has said the government is preparing for a potential influx of refugees. It's been reported that officials have identified and prepared about 15 temporary housing facilities in 4 border provinces.
Thailand has long been committed to our humanitarian tradition. We respect our international obligations and uphold our domestic laws in addressing the situation of those seeking to enter Thailand, including due to unrest or fighting. Once the situation settles, and it is safe to do so, groups can voluntarily return, but will not be forced to do so if there are substantiated claims of danger.
Thailand is already home to about 80,000 Myanmar refugees who fled the long-running civil conflict. They live in 9 camps set up 40 years ago along the border. But with thousands of Karen villagers now taking refuge along the Myanmar side of the Salween riverbank, it could be just a matter of time before the humanitarian challenge escalates.
The situation now is that there are attacks in the place. The fighting is still going on. The people didn't think they were safe. They could not go back to their home. Recently, the air attack came very close to the border as well, and it's close to the place where people are staying right now. So probably there will be times that even along the river it will not be safe anymore, and they have to come here.
I'm standing on Thai soil, but I'll have you know that just by taking a short swim across this river, it would get me across into Myanmar, Karen state. Now, Thailand and Myanmar share a very long border, stretching more than 2,400 kilometers. That's the reason why it's no surprise that both sides share very close people-to-people relations. Now, many of the people here are Thai citizens living on this side of the country, but many of them also have the ethnic Karen blood in them. Some of them also speak the ethnic Karen language. And that's the reason why, when violent clashes break out inside Myanmar, it's not possible for the Thais to simply turn their backs on the Myanmar citizens. The Karen Thai Group, a non-government organization, is collecting donations for the affected Myanmar people. It says Thai and Myanmar citizens living in Thailand have been generous with their contributions. Lachapor Siri Praiprak started volunteering at a civil society organization after hearing about the attacks in Karen State. The violence in Myanmar hits home for her because although she's a Thai citizen, she has family in Myanmar.
อย่าช่วยพี่สาวหน่อยช่วยก็ติดต่อเขาไม่ได้ฮอตก็ติดต่อเขาไม่ได้เปเดือนปลาย2 เดือนแล้วเนาะเปจะได้พ่อก็บ่ฮู้เนาะมันจะไปอยู่ที่ไหนก็เฮาก็บ่ฮู้นะแต่ว่าเขามาช่วยที่นี่ก็เพื่อนขอที่มาสู่ที่นี่เนาะก็เข้าอันยาก็มาม่าก็อันยาก็ปลากระป๋องเนาะข้าวสารมื้อนี้สู่คือไปที่พี่สาวเฮาอยู่ได้แล้วก็จะได้การข้าวสารอาหารแห้งมื้อนี้ก็ประทังชีวิตได้อะ
Medication is just one of the very many items that are pouring in to organizations to help deliver over to the Karen people in need. Now, other items include instant noodles, for example, as well as canned food and, more importantly, rice. The organizations are trying to bag all these rice up to send it over to the Karen people who are literally starving on the other side of the border. Now, the donations have been pouring in since the end of March. And in fact filled up this entire office space where I'm told they're not even able to walk. But now there are remaining items that are still here because of a lot of red tape as well as a lot of delayed paperwork. Transporting the supplies to those living along the river at the border hasn't been easy. There have been reports of boats being shot at by the Myanmar military. Thailand has also tightened security and the logistics of sending aid. Only authorized personnel from the Thai Red Cross are allowed to transport the supplies. Controlling the delivery of aid through a focal organization enables authorities to track the items. It also minimizes the number of boats traveling along the Salween River, preventing potential illegal migrants from Myanmar going across the border. Thailand is also concerned about the potential spread of COVID-19 from those crossing over. At a recent high-level ASEAN meeting on the Myanmar crisis, leaders reached a consensus on providing humanitarian assistance, a move all the more urgent now with the human impact of the coup being felt not just in Myanmar, but beyond its borders as well.
Now, amid looming threat of arrest and deportation, Myanmar people are fighting to stay and work legally in Malaysia, where they believe they have a shot for a better future for themselves and their children.
For a year now, Oi Kong has been praying day and night for her husband's release. The ethnic Chin refugee from Myanmar says her husband was arrested while at work last year and has been in detention at an immigration depot outside Kuala Lumpur since, awaiting deportation. Although both are UNHCR card holders, refugees are not allowed to work legally in Malaysia. Now, with her youngest child barely 4 months old, the young mother of 3 fears that sending her husband back to Myanmar will spell the end for him. Oi Kong left Chin State in Myanmar for Malaysia 7 years ago. The journey she and tens of thousands of other Myanmar refugees like her have taken to get here was long and treacherous. First, across the choppy Andaman Sea, she and dozen others packed like sardines in a rickety boat, and then by road, where they hid inside the boots of cars. And there were days that they trekked on foot through mosquito-infested jungles. They risked their very lives for a chance at a better life, says another refugee.
It's dangerous and a very terrible journey. We were afraid of many things, so we even afraid of the agents.
Memories of her escape from Myanmar still haunt 21-year-old Yin Sinai. She was only 14 when she and her parents fled Myanmar's small state to seek refuge, first in Thailand and then in Malaysia.
Yeah, I remember in Thai to Malaysia, it's very difficult at that time. Raining also, so cannot go by car, so they let we walk like that.
When you think back, do you feel sad or do you feel lucky, or how do you feel?
Until now, if I stay in my hometown, I cannot imagine what is I have to do there. So that when I arrive in Malaysia, I can learn language. So that's how I feel so lucky.
Yin is now a trained hairstylist and she's fitting in well in Malaysia.
How many languages can you speak?
I can speak very well is 4 languages, but Malay and Mandarin is I keep learning.
What goal do you set for yourself? What would you like to do?
In one day, but if our hometown is already peaceful, already can have a job, so I can build my own salon, right?
Yeah, you would like to open your own hair salon one day back home in Mon State?
Hope so.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see you again.
All right, bye-bye.
While Yin is working part-time to support her family, she can't be legally employed, even though she's a UNHCR card holder, which means she can be arrested by authorities anytime.
Still, many refugees have picked up odd jobs to make ends meet, working part-time in stores and restaurants while hoping to evade the attention of authorities.
Now, these shops, located in Pudu, one of the largest enclaves of Myanmar community in the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur, are mostly manned by Myanmar people. Some are refugees fleeing conflict and violence back home. Others are economic migrants. Now, despite the multiple hardships, Malaysia, they said, is still the much preferred destination for them.
Malaysia is home to some 200,000 refugees, and nearly 90% of them are from Myanmar. Another 200,000 are migrants. They are scattered across Malaysia, working mostly in the construction, manufacturing and plantation sectors. Wana runs a centre for refugees from Myanmar's Mon State. It offers basic education as well as boarding for children of refugees and migrants in need of help.
Most Myanmar people, they like to work in Malaysia because of the first thing is the communication and transportation. The employer, most of them are very kind to the refugee.
Another draw is the access to affordable education, and that's why many Myanmar people, after settling in Malaysia for a few years, would arrange for the children to join them here. There are several refugee learning centres run by the UNHCR and non-governmental organisations here that offer primary and secondary education for children.
Now, at this particular centre, run by the Alliance of Chin Refugees, volunteers teach about 300 students, ages between 7 and 17.
Fees start from $25 a month. The learning experience goes beyond the classroom. Students from this school have also been getting hands-on experience in community-run projects like Urban Farm, Kebun Bangsa.
Now, not only these children are learning new skills such as composting and recycling, it's also an opportunity for them to interact with the local community and vice versa.
The farm's founder says he sees great potential in these students.
I think long term we love to see a new generation of immigrants in Malaysia that's going to contribute to the economy, just like when our forefathers came in the 40s and 30s.
Compared to the hardships in conflict-stricken Myanmar, Malaysia is seen as a land of opportunities. Mon says many Myanmar parents like him are willing to risk a life and limb to get to Malaysia so that their children can have a shot at a brighter future.
Education is the main thing, it's the most important for future. The future is going to be good for them.
He plans to bring his 14-year-old son over once he's saved up enough. But it's been months since Mon last spoke to his son. Since the military coup started, lines of communication have been disrupted, and Mon has no idea how his son is doing right now. The violence raging in Myanmar isn't the only thing affecting the community in Malaysia. Some children, like Kong Mon, were ripped apart from their parents when Malaysia deported more than 1,000 Myanmar citizens in February.
Now I'm alone. I very miss my mother very a lot.
And the COVID-19 pandemic has made things tough, even for migrant children whose parents are still in Malaysia. And those with parents working outside Kuala Lumpur have not been able to meet up with their parents over a year due to COVID-19 restrictions banning interstate travel.
Very sad to say that the parent cannot come to visit the children. So before the COVID-19, they can come like twice a year, once a year, some of them. So most of our people, refugees, are without document. They are afraid to come in the KL. On the bus express, some of them they met with the roadblock. They are arrested with the police.
It's been 2 years since Tilanon last saw his mother. He's been here alone. His mother, who left for Myanmar before the pandemic struck, was unable to come back.
I feel lonely and sad. I miss them so much. I wish my mom come here and stay with me.
He's praying for an end to the pandemic so that he may be reunited with his mother soon.
When I grow up, I want to be a pilot, visit my family.
People in the Gaza Strip are turning to alternative sources like solar power to meet their energy needs amid prolonged power outages. As for where I am here in China, despite it leading the world in its push for renewable energy, there's still a chance we may see rising carbon emissions in the coming years. These wind turbine blades span a mammoth 91 meters, or almost the length of a football field. No easy feat to build, and this factory produces 24 of such blades each month. But from the middle of this year, its capacity is set to double as it builds more production lines to meet China's growing demand to produce more wind energy. China already generated the most wind power capacity last year, almost tripling 2019 levels. It has also vowed to increase the share of energy generated by non-fossil fuels to around 20% by 2025, up from its 15% goal last year. That's why this company opened a new manufacturing facility on China's eastern coast in Nantong, Jiangsu province. It's focused on producing wind blades to be used at sea, while its two other factories in the north focus on blades to be used on land.
整个中国的碳排放、碳减排，而且是一个很大的一个大的市场，相当于。而且陆上的风电呢，相对逐渐的平稳期，海上是一个长足发展，一个就相当于可以有一个后面有一个爆发的增长一样的。
Jiangsu is part of the Yangtze River Delta region, an economic powerhouse for China where a growing amount of energy is needed. It's also where a large number of offshore wind power projects are being developed. I'm standing on the coast here in Nantong, and behind me are the wind turbines that have been built relatively close to the shore, and so they are easy to see. But what we can't see are the many other wind turbines that have been built way into the waters, up to 40 kilometers away from where we stand right now. And in the future, many more could be built even further into the sea. Offshore wind makes up a small but rapidly growing part of China's wind energy mix. Last year, the country installed the most offshore wind capacity in the world for the third straight year, and developers have rushed to place orders before government tariff subsidies taper off at the end of the year. While some have raised concerns if this means orders will slow down, Maize Energy remains optimistic on the industry's prospects. Last September, Chinese President Xi Jinping had announced that the country aims to peak carbon emissions before 2030 and become carbon neutral by 2060.
It would be the opposite if there was no support from the central government, if there had not been a statement about carbon net neutrality, as ambitious as the target may be. I think we'd be definitely, swimming upstream, so to speak.
But Greenpeace says there may still be a gap between the goals of the central and local governments. China still remains the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, and Greenpeace noted that there has been an increase in coal-fired power capacity approved by local governments last year, more than double the total capacity in 2019. So despite the heavy investments in green energy, unless China weans itself off its reliance on fossil fuels, carbon emissions look set to soar in the coming years.
Shadia Darwish lives in a Gaza refugee camp with her 8 children, 4 who were born with disabilities. Life for them is hard, relying on handouts to help pay for her children's specialized medical bills. The constant power outages made caring for her children very difficult. But thanks to a solar panel donation made by a Gaza-based NGO, Darwish has one less thing to worry about.
عندهم صعوبة في الأكل. لازم إنه أكلهم يكون ناعم حتى أن نطحن لهم على الخلاط. بعدين الضوء دائما خايفين في العتمة وجهاز التنفس لازم عند الولد دائما لازم يتنفس على جهاز.
For nearly 15 years, the Gaza Strip has suffered from a chronic electricity deficit from political conflict with Israel. And that has impacted essential services, including health, sanitation, and education. People are now looking to solar for cheap, clean, and efficient energy source, which is available throughout the year. Here at the Patients' Friends Benevolent Hospital in Gaza City, the hospital has had to deal with years of power shortages affecting everything from hospital procedures to operation of medical devices to simply keeping the heating on. But now that's all in the past, thanks to a $180,000 solar panel project, all funded by an international NGO and implemented by the Gaza-based Mega Power Company.
طبعا قسم العمليات هذا من أهم الأقسام الموجودة في المستشفى ويعتبر قسم طوارئ لأنه كتير إحنا العمل على مدار 24 ساعة في قسم العمليات فإحنا طبعا منطقة تعرف فيها حروب فيها مسيرات عودة إلى غير ذلك بتحتم علينا أن نؤمن يعني الطاقة الكهربائية لسائر أنحاء المستشفى. طبعا بهذه الطريقة استطعنا أن نوصل الطاقة التي تساعدني على إيجاد الخدمة بشكل منتظم.
These solar projects have the added benefit of helping the environment as well as creating awareness amongst Gazans of the climate crisis. Climate experts here are predicting global warming will mean precipitation in this region will decrease by as much as 25%, which will cause massive problems as water scarcity is already an issue. 97% of the water in Gaza is already undrinkable. Environmentalists are hoping that by educating the population to use renewable energy, people here can be prepared to adapt and respond to any future climate change disasters.